20,000 years ago, near the end of the last great ice age, south-central Alaska was buried in a sea of ice almost a mile thick. Imagine all of this beautiful landscape, including famous Mount Susitna, better known as Sleeping Lady, slumbering beneath a sheet of ice nearly 5,000 feet thick. It must have looked like the ice fields we see today, a barren sea of snow and ice with a few jagged mountain peaks rising like islands above. As the climate warmed, glaciers retreated, leaving behind U-shaped glacier-carved valleys, deep water fjords, and coastal inlets like Turnagain Arm. Portage Glacier is one of Alaska's most prominent survivors of past ice ages. Just 55 miles south of Anchorage, at the head of Turnagain Arm, Portage is not the largest of Alaska's 100,000 glaciers, but its proximity to Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, nudges Portage Glacier toward the top of the list of Alaska's most visited attractions. For the observant, tiny Portage Valley affords a first-hand look at the forces of nature at work. This is one of the wettest and windiest places in south-central Alaska. The winds sometimes reach hurricane force as they funnel over Portage Pass and down the valley. The constant winds sculpt the exposed spruce into flag trees, bare of branches on the side facing the wind. In winter, the massive amounts of precipitation falls as a deep snow blanket, a soft covering that after years of pressure and cold becomes glacial ice, the great carver of mountains. Heavy snows also trigger winter and spring avalanches that roar and tumble down the steep valley walls.
Look what he's doing for us. Oh my God, live avalanche.
Watch the car, look at the car get out of the way.
Avalanche in process.
Here along the shore of Portage Lake, you'll likely find extraordinarily shaped icebergs in all sizes. Some icebergs are as large as a house, or small enough to hold until your fingers are numbed. Portage Valley offers diverse habitat that is home to abundant wildlife, from peculiar ice worms to majestic moose. Some live here year-round, while others are migrants, just passing through, like the tens of thousands of humans who come to see Portage Glacier. It's a typical summer day at the Baggage Boggs Visitor Center at Portage Lake. The wind is blowing and the lakeside parking lot is full. This tourist is driven from Virginia Beach, Virginia to fill his cooler with glacier ice. The ice recently fell from the glacier's face and floated to the lake's edge. It is as pure as the snow that fell several decades ago to form the glacier ice.
Oh yeah. That's gorgeous ice, huh?
Same temperature is at home.
Glaciologists and geologists tell us that Portage Glacier is a remnant of the Little Ice Age, a cooling trend 3,000 years ago which caused the last advance of Portage Glacier and most other coastal glaciers in Alaska. Sometime prior to 1810, the glacier advanced to its maximum extent. It filled the entire lake basin, and stretch just down the valley from the Begich Boggs Visitor Center. The present U.S. Forest Service Visitor Center marks the position of Portage Glacier's terminus in 1893. Portage Glacier and Portage Pass were named because of their historical use as a transportation corridor between Prince William Sound and Turnagain Arm. This portage was first used by Eskimos and Indians, and later by Russian fur traders and prospectors heading to the Kenai Peninsula gold fields. The terminus of Portage Glacier rests at the southeastern shore of Portage Lake. The face of this glacier rests partially on bedrock, with the balance sitting in around 400 feet of water. As late as the mid-1990s, Portage Glacier stretched across the lake with a dramatic wall of ice looming 80 feet above the silty waters. From this eagle's eye perspective, you can see a small lake whose clear waters reveal the brilliant azure blue glacier ice which forms its bottom. As this frozen river of ice flows downhill, cracks and crevasses form as the ice sheet flexes over the uneven terrain below. The tongue of ice which once jutted into Portage Lake is gone, lost to the constant breaking off or calving of icebergs into the lake. In one dramatic month in 1994, the glacier receded by the length of 2.5 football fields. And for the first time in perhaps thousands of years, the bedrock under the glacial face was exposed. Scientists and researchers had predicted this would happen, but not until the year 2020. Portage Lake was suddenly filled with thousands of icebergs, pushed by the wind to the western shore of the lake. Geologist Christine Crossan is an expert in glacial dynamics in Portage Valley and Portage Pass.
The lake is about 600 feet deep on the average, and that means that the deeper the water, the more calving of the icebergs. And the more the icebergs calve, the faster the glacier retreats. So much so that even if the glacier replaces ice to the margin of the glacier, all that happens is that there's more calving. The glacier really doesn't have the ability to advance when it's in deep water. So that's what's happened in the last 100 years, from about 1914 to 1994, that time period. The glacier moved from the lake shore on the north end of the lake to the lake shore on the other end of the lake. All that time, the front of the glacier was standing in the water in the front of that lake. All that time, lots of large icebergs were calving off.
Since Portage continues to actively calve into Portage Lake, visitors have the chance to see many icebergs. Like the snowflakes that formed them, each is unique in size and shape. One of the most often asked questions about these natural wonders, why does the glacier ice look blue?
To me, the question, why is the ice blue, is really a question, why isn't the ice white? We know that the icebergs are formed from the glacier. We know that the glacier is formed from compacted snow. And yet when we see the iceberg, it doesn't look white, it looks blue. And the reason for that is that to change from the snow that falls on top of the glacier to the glacial ice itself, there is a recrystallization and a regrowth and a reforming of the ice crystals. They are compacted, they are compressed, and they are recrystallized. In a white snowbank, there is a tremendous amount of glare off that snowbank because the white light comes in and the white light is reflected back to your eye. But once the ice crystals are recrystallized in the glacier and in the iceberg, then some of that light has been trapped by the crystals, and only the blue light is reflected. And so there's a difference in the crystallography. There is a difference in the color because of that. All right, we have an iceberg that I just dragged out of the lake, and there's a couple interesting features that you can see. You can see that there's a whiter part to the iceberg and a clearer part to the iceberg. And if you look inside the white part to the iceberg, you'll see that there's lots and lots of bubbles. This is called bubble-rich ice. If you look inside the clear part of the iceberg, you'll see that it's free of bubbles. This is called bubble-free ice. It is thought that these two types of ice form differently inside the glacier. The bubble-rich ice is thought to be the ice which forms from the snow that is compacted over the winter. Because, of course, when snowflakes fall and compact, there is a tremendous amount of air that is contained within the snowbank and then becomes contained within the iceberg. The bubble-free ice is thought to be meltwater, which is refrozen inside the glacier. So, of course, in the summertime, there's a tremendous amount of melt associated with Alaska glaciers, but in the wintertime it gets cold, and the water that's in the tunnels underneath the glacier, the water that's in the crevasses starts to freeze up. And that's what we see over here, the water that has refrozen in the glacier.
These visitors are boarding the MV Ptarmigan to get up close and personal with Portage Glacier. Since the glacier is not visible from the U.S. Forest Service Visitor Center, the best way to see Portage is aboard the tour boat. Hour-long cruises take visitors to the face of the glacier to see firsthand the glacial forces at work. Along the way, a Forest Service naturalist narrates the trip as the Ptarmigan cruises beneath rock walls sculpted by the advance and retreat of Portage Glacier. Here, 300 yards from the face of the glacier, you feel an icy wind. Lucky visitors can witness a truly dramatic calving as an ice wall separates from the face of the glacier and thunders into the deep lake.
Where you have the ice coming into the lake like this is going to calve either in two ways. It'll come off as a belly flopper, or it's going to come off as a shooter. A shooter goes down, the belly flopper is when the ice comes off above the water line. So we have a variety of different ways it'll come off. And when it does, you only see 1/10 of the ice that was there, because 9/10 of it's underwater. The glacier is moving down the mountain at 500 feet a year, but it's receding at 520. So we have a net loss of 20 foot a year. There's some years we've had a loss of 300 feet net. It gives us about an average of about 17 inches of ice a day that is coming off the glacier.
Seeing the glacier from the Ptarmigan is just one of many opportunities to learn about Portage Glacier. Its story is also told in the landscape left behind after the glacial retreat. A telltale sign of glacial advance and retreats are the moraines, piles of rocks and debris carried by the glacier and left behind after the glacier withdraws. Every glacier has some type of moraine. The dark ribbon on this glacier, called a medial moraine, is actually rock scraped from the mountainsides. The debris one day will either be deposited at the face of the glacier or crushed beneath the glacier into fine glacial flour. Geologists can tell a lot about the glacier by studying the piles of rocks where the glacier once rested.
This deposit that we see here, the ridge that is behind me, is made out of all the material that was carried under the glacier. So we see both the very large rocks, because the glacier, of course, can carry any size, things down to the size I'm holding in my hand, and very fine-grained material as well. All this material is carried by the ice, just like a conveyor belt, brought to the front of the ice and then deposited.
Christine is hiking along a glacier-scoured rock wall near the entrance to Bear Valley. She's looking for signs that will tell her when the glacier released its grip from this area.
What we see right here is the surface that was sculpted by the glacier. It's very smooth. It has some of the marks that are left by the glacier. And that surface, this rock boss, has been overrun by the glacier. And after the glacier has retreated, then the vegetation starts growing. And some of the first colonizers are the mosses here and the lichens, particularly on the bare bedrock. The lichens grow here. Now these are rather large lichens. The lichens are Rhizocarpum geographicum. The size of them is related to the age, so that the much smaller lichens are younger lichens, ones that have only been started to grow on the rock within the past maybe tens of years. These lichens, the largest lichens here, date back to 1852. The moss also is an early colonizing plant. It grows in the cracks in the rock. These are extracting the nutrients from the rock on this deglaciated surface.
Plant succession is a decades-long process by which plants begin to inhabit land revealed by glacial retreat. Fireweed is one of the colonists. Alaskans use fireweed as a rough gauge of how soon winter will arrive. It's said that once all the blossoms open to the top of the stalk, summer is ending, and in Alaska, winter is never far behind. Fireweed and other pioneering plants prepare the soil, building up essential nutrients. Eventually, enough organic matter accumulates to create soil to support the growth of trees. Over centuries, land once sterilized by imprisoning ice may support a mature old-growth forest. Visitors should keep their eyes open for some of Portage's many animal residents. Bears, both brown and black, roam the valley from its precipitous slopes to valley salmon streams. Moose are more limited to Portage Valley, especially when winter snows make travel difficult. They often congregate in areas where the snow is not as deep and they can more easily escape predators. It's common for a cow moose to give birth to twin calves. These youngsters are not yet a year old. By the time this young male reaches maturity, he might weigh 1,800 pounds. Food is often scarce during the winter, but moose are survivors who can subsist on a diet as bland as alder and willow. Beavers are another year-round valley resident. These industrious rodents spend their summer days damming streams and gnawing down tall trees and willows. In different seasons, the calls of migratory birds fill the air. Sandhill cranes and trumpeter swans are two of the larger migrants that use the Portage Pass Flyway every spring and fall. While some species, like these snow geese, just stop over en route to their breeding grounds, bald eagles are one of the many types of birds that nest in the Portage area. This is an immature bald eagle. Young eagles and their white-headed adult counterparts are commonly sighted in Portage Valley and along Turnagain Arm. Arctic terns hold the travel record. They fly in from southern South America, a 10,000-mile trip just to nest and raise their young. All 5 species of Pacific salmon spawn in the streams of Portage Valley. These brilliant redfish are sockeye salmon. The Willowaw Salmon Viewing Site allows visitors a platform to watch the salmon from above. The red color of these salmon shows they are nearing the end of their life cycle. They've returned to the stream of their birth to fan, gravel, nest, and spawn. Their eggs will give rise to a new generation that will find their way back to the same spawning beds in 3 to 4 years. Seeing wildlife, large or small, is usually a case of being in the right place at the right time. If you hanker to see Alaska's legendary ice worm, then one of the right places is near the toe of Byron Glacier. Byron Glacier is one of Portage Valley's hanging glaciers. The trail to ice worm country parallels a stream of glacial meltwater. It leads to a snowfield below the glacier's face. On the surface of this snowfield, the minuscule ice worm makes its year-round home. Here they feed on algae and pollen in the surface snow layer. Ice worms require temperatures near freezing and move up or down in the surface snow layer to find that temperature. Part of the earthworm family, there are 4 known species of ice worms. You could pile many of these needle-sized, inch-long creatures on the face of a dime. The silt-filled meltwater from the 5 glaciers in Portage Valley eventually flow into the waters of Turnagain Arm. This glacial carved fjord is filled to the brim with glacial silt that is in some places over 1,000 feet deep. Extensive mudflats are revealed at low tide. Turnagain Arm experiences some of the biggest tidal fluctuations in the world, up to 38 feet. Venturing out in the flats is treacherous, acting like quicksand. As the tide rushes in, it often sweeps across the mudflats with a wall of water called a bore tide, which can be several feet high. While the Arm's waters are silt-filled, they are not devoid of life. These are beluga whales. The belugas follow schools of fish, including salmon, which travel through Turnagain Arm to their spawning streams. This group includes mature belugas as well as their blue-gray offspring, born just a couple of months earlier. The color of beluga whales gradually lightens until they're 5 to 6 years old and usually white in color. Belugas navigate and hunt in these murky waters using a highly refined acoustic sonar system, a series of noises that can be heard using an underwater microphone. Several hundred belugas are believed to live in Cook Inlet, which includes Turnagain Arm. Their numbers, however, appear to be declining, prompting concerns for this population's survival. The mountains which line Turnagain Arm are home for another all-white mammal, Dall sheep. While these sure-footed climbers seem to prefer the higher elevations, a certain band of Turnagain Arm sheep regularly descend to roadside. Here they frequently cause traffic to slow as passers-by take a look at these not-so-shy animals. The Dall sheep live in this area year-round. The wind sweeps the snow off the higher slopes, making it easier for them to forage. But even in winter, the bands of sheep venture to sea level. Winter is a beautiful time along Turnagain Arm. The waters are filled with ever-moving sea ice pushed and pulled by the tides. The sunset brings a false appearance of warmth, even as temperatures dip well below zero. This beautiful setting was the site of one of the most dramatic recent natural events in Alaska, the Great Earthquake of 1964. The morning fog rolls past a ghost forest near the mouth of Portage Valley, which stands as a reminder of that Good Friday, March 27th, when the largest earthquake to hit North America shook the land. It measured 9.2 on the Richter scale. The ground along this part of Turnagain Arm subsided 6 to 11 feet, flooding the forest with salt water. The railroad town of Portage was flooded as well. The homes and businesses of Portage's 70 residents abandoned. Today, all that remains of the town site sits rusting and decaying as traffic along the Seward Highway rushes by. The Alaska Railroad still runs through Portage. Summer visitors pass Portage Valley en route between Anchorage and Seward. The tracks also run to Whittier, a popular jumping-off point for the exploration of Prince William Sound. But rather than traveling over the mountains and on top of the glacier, today's travelers go through the mountain. The Whittier Tunnel, over 2 miles long, connects Prince William Sound and Turnagain Arm. Built during World War II as a supply line, the same tunnel now serves both rail and road traffic. This multi-use transportation link makes Portage Valley the gateway to Prince William Sound. Like Portage Glacier, Prince William Sound lies within the 5.6 million-acre Chugach National Forest. It is a stunningly beautiful part of Alaska, with forested islands, snow-capped mountain peaks, and tidewater glaciers stretching their icy fingers to the sea. The air and water teem with life. Millions of birds travel to Prince William Sound each spring and fall as part of their annual migrations. While some are just passing through, others nest here like black oyster catchers. Horned and tufted puffins are another colorful seabird which nest in Prince William Sound. This is a colony of black-legged kittiwakes. They built their nests on a glacier-polished mountainside near Whittier in Passage Canal. The waterfalls churn the seawater, bringing tiny organisms to the surface, providing the kittiwakes an easy food supply. Bald eagles are among the Sound's most visible winged residents. Bald eagles build their nest in the treetops. It's nearing the time for these young eagles to test their wings and leave the nest. Stellar sea lions are one of the Sound's marine mammal residents. They haul out on remote islands to rest and take refuge. The haul-outs are also a place to socialize or decide who's the boss. The protected waters of the Sound, with 2,500 miles of shoreline, are ideal for many types of wilderness exploration. From the solitude of kayaking in a tranquil bay to seeing the Sound from a small tour vessel, a trip on Prince William Sound is usually full of surprises. You never know when you might see a family of sea otters. Orca whales, also known as killer whales, are a symbol of the rich ecosystem in the Sound. These sleek black and white hunters of salmon and marine mammals travel in small family groups called pods. An encounter with an orca might happen anywhere on the Sound as they patrol the shoreline. On this occasion, the curious orcas take a break from fishing to check out the tour boat. Prince William Sound is one of the best places in Alaska to see tidewater glaciers. While Portage Glacier drops its birds into a lake, these giant rivers of ice calve into the sea. Like at Portage, the moment comes with a sharp crack, followed by the roar of white thunder. As global warming conditions continue, it's natural to ask, what will become of Alaska's glaciers? And what role does the man-caused greenhouse effect have on the decline of these frozen blue rivers like Portage Glacier?
I don't think that there's any way to deny the fact that in the last 100 years, certainly we have a lot of effect of humans on the environment in terms of global warming. The question is, to a scientist then, is what we see in terms of the retreat of these glaciers, is it entirely man-made? Could people actually be causing the retreat of the glaciers? Or is what we see in terms of the retreat of the glaciers, is that part of a normal cycle and the CO2 warming is on top of that? Now, as a glacial geologist, I see things in the long term. I know that the glaciers were almost to the top of these mountains in the past. And I know that 200 years ago, the glaciers entirely filled this lake. And we think that thousands and even hundreds of years ago, there was no human impact on the environment. So my own personal opinion is that there are lots of natural cycles that we see, and the glaciers are responding to those natural cycles. It would be nice if we knew a little bit more about the causative factors for those natural cycles, but we probably don't have all the answers there. Again, I don't deny that there is CO2 warming, but that may just be the frosting on the cake rather than the main punch in terms of what is causing the glaciers to retreat.
In glacial perspective, time is not measured in days or years, but in ages. What we call the Little Ice Age certainly will not be the last. It is only a matter of time before Portage Glacier again marches down the valley.
It is here among the high arches of the Earth's crust that they are born, in these places frigid and remote, barriers to moisture from the North Pacific. During the past 2 million years, their kind has dominated nearly 1/3 of the total land area of this planet. Humankind has called them glaciers. They are rivers of ice, and their movement contains the power to carve great valleys. As they move, they speak to us with the sounds of their labor. These are the sounds of their life and their death. Snowflakes, the frozen breath of the ocean from which glaciers are created. They are the first step in the process of continual change, continual beginnings. Storm after storm, layer by layer, the flakes accumulate. Time and pressure fuse them together, compressing the snow into dense, jewel-like ice. Under the increasing weight of each new snow, the ice moves down slope, like a river, forming a flowing sheet hundreds or even thousands of feet thick. In the Chugach Mountains of south-central Alaska, vast rivers of ice have flowed through the course of many ice ages. In recent geologic times, much of this area was covered by glacial ice half a mile thick. Today, these mountains are still the domain of active glaciers. About 1/3 of the Chugach National Forest is still under the domination of moving ice. In the tradition of their immense ancestors, these glaciers are master sculptors of the landscape. Living symbols of the forces of change and transformation, they return to the sea from which they came. At the end of a glacier, ice breaks off and melts. This may happen faster than the glacier's movement as it flows down the valley. The glacier gets smaller. Because glaciers are slowly shrinking throughout the northern hemisphere, they tell us of a warming trend in the Earth's atmosphere, which can be detected in no other way. The glacier's surface is a surreal landscape of icy spires and crevasses. These crevasses are so deep that a 10-story building could be hidden within them. These are the facial expressions of the tremendous pressure and stress within a glacier as it moves over the uneven terrain. The movement of a glacier is imperceptible to our normal vision. feet per day is the normal speed of travel. Near the glacier, its monstrous weight can be heard grinding across the land. These are the sounds of a battle between rock and ice, the voices of a struggle nearly as ancient as the earth itself. The exposed bedrock, over which the glacier once passed, gives mute evidence of the power of the moving ice. As the glacier transforms the land beneath it, the ice itself is eroding away on the front of the glacier, yielding to the force of sunlight and warmer temperatures. Meltwater flows under and through the glaciers, creating caves of exquisite architecture and unfamiliar beauty. As the sun sets, one of the most uniquely adapted forms of life in this cold environment slowly prepares to make an appearance. Although most plants and animals depend on the retreat of glaciers to make habitat available to them, there is one creature whose life unfolds on the snow itself. The ice worm is a creature of such myth and mystery that many people do not believe in its existence. They live between snow crystals near the surface of the glacier, emerging to the open air to feed on pollen carried by the wind. It is known that they are related to earthworms, but many details of their existence remain a mystery. The landscape unveiled by the retreat of a glacier is nearly as harsh as the ice itself. It will take only a few years for the first plants to inhabit this wasteland of barren rock. Their existence creates a thin veneer of soil, a carpet of nourishment, in which other plants soon flourish. With the advancement of time, the bleak landscape is transformed by an unfolding parade of new voices. Created by the melting of snow and glaciers, life flooded into the marsh, cradle and nursery for a myriad of species. As distant glaciers feed the marsh, a new generation of young emerges to begin life's oldest journey of discovery. Green forests invaded the valleys left by the retreating glaciers, became home to new forms of life, and filtered the meltwater streams, which became host to other species. Salmon return every year to these glacial gravels to deposit the seed of the next generation. It is here that these adult salmon began their life's journey, and here it will end. The rich land and forests left behind by the diminishing glaciers have also echoed to the sound of human voices. For thousands of years, native cultures lived along glacial rivers and open coastlines, sustained by an abundant supply of fish and wildlife. These early people left few marks upon the land. Only a few tools and the artifacts of their religion remain. The depression where they built a house 6,000 years ago is almost obscured by the encroaching forest. By the middle of the 18th century, Russians appeared along the coast in search of a wealth of furs. The Russian influence changed the native culture and altered a way of life forever. Prospectors followed the creeks and canyons which were left behind by the retreating glaciers, looking for quick wealth, easy riches. Sometimes they found it, but often the wealth they left behind in their machinery and labor was greater than the gold they found. The relics of their labor reached into the remotest parts of the landscape, supported by the forest as they went. Tales of endless wealth gave way to disappointment for most, and the land was abandoned, along with their claims and their dreams. After the turn of the century, men returned to expand their search for valuable metals with the more sophisticated technology of steam locomotives. They bravely pushed through an inhospitable environment and built monuments to their energy and daring. Today, the forest speaks to us still, reminding us of our past, the natural world, and perhaps a chance to know ourselves. A place for some of us to satisfy a deeply felt need for wildness. The forest continues to sustain a multitude of human needs, providing wood, paper, and fuel. These streams still issue their secret call to the salmon, a call we cannot hear. But their return to these forest streams each year provides a living for many Alaskans. And even today, miners still search the forest for precious minerals, scoured from the earth by the work of ancient glaciers. The forest is timeless, though constantly changing. Like the glaciers, it speaks to us of many moods and seasons. The voices of the glaciers are greatly diminished now. Because the Earth is in a warming period, many glaciers are melting faster than they are expanding. But still, they dominate these lands of coastal Alaska. And still, we hear the roar of crashing ice from snows that fell decades ago. The history of our relationship with this landscape is profoundly influenced by the existence of glaciers. They are the sculpting tools of evolution's continuing art of creation. Millions of acres have emerged from under their domain as the Chugach National Forest. But in time, they will perhaps reclaim this rugged land once again.